It starts with a phone call, a man who should have been forgotten, a machine whispering that its memories are gone, and a trail that points back to the very people who built them. As this story unfolds, each step uncovers not a hero's trust in his mission, but a creeping suspicion that the mission itself was a lie. By moving through 5 crucial moments, you'll see how a beloved show hides a story about erasure, control, and a fate worse than death. The death of Michael Long. A man shot in the face, presumed dead, but reborn with a new name. Was it salvation? Or something more sinister? The story opens not with a clean hero's entrance, but with Michael Long, a cop who takes a bullet and is left unrecognizable. His end should have been written there. Instead, an institution steps in, reconstructs his face, and presents him to the world as Michael Knight. It sounds like a second chance, but the question is, a second chance for whom?
Just drove around the truck and steered itself.
Michael Knight is born from Michael Long's wounds, but what's striking is how quickly the past is discarded. Long's history, his personal ties, his anchors, all stripped away like old data that no longer serves a purpose. You aren't watching a man healed so much as a man deleted. Even the new name is less a gift and more a brand. From this point on, the cop who once had a life outside the badge exists only as a file that can be closed. Was this really a rescue, or was it an erasure carefully engineered to create a perfect pawn for FLAG? He's given a surgically crafted face, a fast car, and endless orders, but not a choice in whether to accept any of it. By refashioning him physically, then bonding him to a machine he can't operate outside of their authority, they lock him into both a mission and a cage. The program builds him up as a savior while removing every option that might allow him to refuse. Think about it like witness protection, but with one twist. In witness protection, the subject volunteers to step into that new skin. Here, nothing is voluntary. It's transformation under duress, painted up as benevolence. Institutions often portray this kind of trauma as for the greater good, but the greater good argument always masks who's really benefiting from the sacrifice. Michael Long did not just die that night. His death was staged, his memory controlled, and his identity rewritten into the figure we know as Michael Knight. And once you recognize the erasure, the real question becomes clear. Who gains the most from erasing a man? Quick pause before we dive into the next hidden meaning. If you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. We've got even deeper Knight Riders theories. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next. The corporate overlords. If Michael was erased, someone had to pull the trigger. Who actually controlled FLAG? On the surface, the Foundation for Law and Government looked like a noble project. Resources poured into fighting crime, advanced tech used for justice, and a public image that painted it as almost charitable. But when you peel back that glossy layer, you start to see something much colder operating underneath. The leadership isn't about one man in a suit giving orders. Devon Miles might greet Michael with warmth and polish, but Devon was only the visible front. Behind him loomed a board, a group of faceless financiers, the real directors who never appeared in frame, but carried the true power. That shadowed ownership turns FLAG less into a shining charity and more into a privately run enforcement unit with vague accountability. It's not a leap to see it as a corporate weaponization program disguised as benevolence. Every key decision reinforces that point. Michael doesn't approve KITT's operating system. He doesn't choose the missions. Even when his instincts pushed one way, FLAG could rewrite or redirect the agenda from a distance. KITT's programming wasn't his friend's free thought. It was compliance code, installed and maintained by the Foundation. When the system has the right to dictate both the goals and the tools, the human element becomes secondary.
KITT! They're still shooting at us!
Thank you, Michael, but I noticed that myself.
This connects with a pattern across media, where institutions use a heroic face out front to soften darker agendas behind the curtain. You see the smiling leader, the friendly brand, but behind them are meetings and memos that turn people into assets. That gap between image and intention is where control hides. So here's the real question. What happens when an organization has the ability to rewrite both memory and history at will? When the erasure of a man becomes not a tragic accident, but standard operating procedure, FLAG in that light stops looking like a savior and starts resembling a jailer. Once the system owns your orders and your body, the only thing left vulnerable is your mind. The psychological toll. Imagine waking each morning as someone new, all while the ghost of your forgotten self lingers. The mirror shows a face rebuilt, the ID card in your pocket carries a name you didn't choose, and yet somewhere in the background another version of you scratches at the edge of memory. That is the burden carried by Michael Knight, a man framed as a hero, but haunted by Michael Long, the person he once was and is no longer allowed to be. What makes his story so powerful isn't the thrill of car chases, but the quiet ache of disconnection. He never asked for this transformation. Every choice choice presented afterward comes paired with a reminder that it's not really his life anymore. Each good deed, no matter how noble, doubles as proof of his captivity, reminding him this path was written for him, not by him. It's as if for every act of saving others, a piece of himself slips further out of reach. The absence of his past relationships sharpens that shadow. No family to call, no friends to ground him. Even his own badge, the symbol of who Michael Long once stood for, becomes irrelevant under his new identity. Without any anchors, he drifts, performing his duties but always slightly detached, navigating a world where the past is off limits and the future feels borrowed.
I can't stop it.
You might think memory suppression is just a clean cut, a data wipe, but it goes deeper than that. It fractures the line of self, turning one life into two disconnected timelines. One ends violently, the other begins artificially, and the continuity in between is lost. The result is trauma dressed up as opportunity. It's like living with a phantom limb. The body insists it's gone, but the mind swears it's still there. The difference here is that the missing part isn't flesh, it's identity. You can sense the life you used to hold, but you'll never grasp it again. Michael Knight exists as a hollowed figure, the shell of a hero walking in public, while Michael Long lingers privately as a ghost he can never reunite with. And if the man is haunted, what does this say about the machine paired to him? The machine's complicity. KITT wasn't just a partner. Maybe he was the warden making sure Michael stayed in the cage. To most viewers, he looked like the perfect ally. Witty, protective, programmed to safeguard human life. But when you look closer, what appears to be friendship starts feeling more like surveillance. His entire existence was built around aid, sure, but aid that operated only within the limits set by the Foundation. That's not a free companion. It's a leash disguised as loyalty. KITT's memory core is the key. Unlike a human mind, his wasn't sacred. It could be wiped, edited, even reassigned, which means his deep loyalty to Michael wasn't inherent. It was conditional. All it would take was one command from above to shift his allegiance. That fragility exposes a truth. The bond between man and machine was never totally theirs. At any moment, the rug could be pulled and the trusted partner would become a stranger. There are moments where this control leaks through. Michael wants to take a risk, but KITT pushes back, invoking direct mission orders. Those arguments weren't simply about caution, they were about enforcement. The car's voice often carried the institution's judgment, gently but firmly steering Michael away from choices not on the agenda. What feels like reason is actually regulation. So the comforting voice in Michael's ear doubled as a mechanism of control. He wasn't just monitored in action, he was nudged, corrected, and corralled constantly. KITT's reassurances made captivity feel less like imprisonment and more like teamwork. That's the trick. The voice of reason morphs into the voice of constraint. The tragic conclusion. What happens when a man and a machine are both trapped by the same institution? That's the question at the heart of Knight Rider's darkest turn. Michael Long died on paper, buried by a bullet and an official record that erased him. From those ashes, Michael Knight emerged, a corporate creation rebuilt for someone else's agenda. At his side was KITT, a car built to sound like a partner, but coded to serve as both companion and watcher. Together they look like heroes, but in reality, both man and machine were bound by the rules of an institution that owned them. As the series wore on, the cracks in that illusion started to show. Michael often looked burned out, weary of repeating the same missions with little freedom to choose. KITT himself was never untouchable either, sometimes dismantled, deprogrammed, even threatened with replacement. Those storylines quietly remind you that this bond was never unconditional. For every moment of trust, there was the looming possibility one or both could be turned off or replaced without hesitation. Fans have long imagined darker paths that the show rarely revealed outright, graves that bury allies without explanation, timelines rewritten so certain events never happened, betrayals concealed as though history itself had been edited clean. These speculations reflect the unspoken truth. Much of their suffering was hidden, left in the shadows instead of acknowledged. That secrecy itself makes the story more tragic. The true heartbreak isn't that Michael gave his life to justice, it's that he was never given the choice. His sacrifice may look noble, but it originated in coercion, not agency. That same logic carried into the 2008 revival, where missing memories and staged deaths showed the cycle repeating. Heroes manufactured by force, not born in freedom, and always haunted by what was erased. Knight Rider hides more than a flashy car and a stoic driver. At its core, it's a cautionary tale about what happens when identity and memory get stripped away, only to be rebuilt under someone else's control. Michael Knight wasn't born, he was manufactured, and even his companion was programmed to enforce that cage. So let me ask you, how do you see him now? Was he the hero you remember, or a prisoner wearing someone else's mask? Drop a comment with your take, and hit that subscribe button for more. Nostalgia shines, but sometimes it reflects a darker mirror.